It is necessary to say a few words about the difference between the two approaches to comprehending the world. So one of them is the scientific approach. And the other is the approach of a person who is developing harmonious spiritual control of reality, which can be described as inner vision. So the first approach is well known to everyone. So based on the observations and the experiments, scientists try to see behind the individual phenomena, sometimes even at the first glance unrelated to each other, the common thing that unites them. And in case of the success, then there is such law is established that unites various phenomena with a single formula. So we all know about the Newton's law from school, which can be used to calculate the movement of a saucer ball, the flight of an airplane, and the movement of the planets of the solar system. So in their work, scientists use instruments created in laboratories and factories. And the improvements of the instruments make it possible to obtain new information. And the second approach to comprehending the world is completely different. So here, a person in his work does not use devices made in laboratories or factories, that is, artificially created devices. No, he uses a device created by the Lord, God, and his own organism. And precisely with this device, there is a work done. And we can immediately say that all the books in this series are based on this second approach. And as we see, and as we will see later, this approach should be the first and the main one. However, we can already say that proof of this is the need to everyone the existing threat of global destruction and establish spiritual control over the development of the technology. Now it is clear that the now it is clear that the continuous cumulative development of technical systems can become dangerous if they are not based on control through human consciousness. Since it is consciousness that develops harmoniously, simultaneously with the development of the entire world. Scientists working at the forefront of science are well aware that to explain the phenomena of this world, it is necessary to create theories that use multidimensional spaces. That is, spaces whose number of dimensions is more than 3. And scientists not only understand this, but they do it. However, if they cannot perceive such spaces, this will immediately significantly limit them. Therefore, here, as elsewhere, the task is somehow to get rid of the limitations of our current perception. But the whole question is how to do it. Mhm. And this question is existing in front of each person, regardless of the person's professional background. This is generally one of the key questions. I have already said above that changing the state of consciousness and ascending to ever higher status of consciousness is the most important task facing a person. And what exactly a person needs to do for his development, and above all, for the development of his consciousness, is a separate big topic, and it will find a place in this series later. But so that you can now begin to change your body, and begin to coordinate its work with the pulse of the universe. At the end of this book, in the appendix, there are simple exercises for each day of the month. Doing them may only take few minutes a day, but the results will be noticeable because on each specific day of the month, they offer activities that are most suitable for that particular day of the month. And therefore they provide maximum efficiency with minimal effort and the time. We encounter the importance of the question of changing our state of consciousness in life at every step. Life, again and again, poses this question to us. Imagine that you are in the park and suddenly you see a blooming rose in front of you. You see the amazing colors of these delicate petals, feel the delicate aroma exuded by this flower, and perhaps a drop of water on a petal glistens in the sun after the rain. So you are admiring this divine beauty. And this beauty and the sense are alluring you. And you feel another life next to you and you want to understand it. But how to do that? You feel the answer is somewhere nearby. You feel it with your whole being. But at the same time, you feel like something is missing. The flower is very close. It is in front of you, but it is as if an invisible barrier separates you from it. The answer comes to you, you feel it, but as if it is in a different language. It feels like you can't get through something. And the question remains, how is it possible to understand what rose is? Let's get into science. Science can perform a chemical analysis of a flower, determine the percentage of individual chemical elements it contains, study the processes occurring in the tissues of a flower, and much more. But knowledge of all these percentages and types of processes will not really help to help us to understand, feel what a lovely, fragrant, living flower is. And so the question arises again, how can this be done? And how do you know what rose is? And it is even possible to do this. And in fact, it is possible. But it is possible to do only in one way. And the way to do it is as follows. To find out what rose is, you need to become a rose. You need to merge with it, at least for a moment. And this is possible, but only, of course, in a higher state of consciousness. And this is the main way to comprehend the world, which is actually the most important. It has to be the main one. Please note, to gain knowledge on this path, you do not need to cut the flower, you don't need to kill it. This is fundamentally different technology for obtaining knowledge. This is the acquisition of knowledge without destruction. Let's make a small digression. We just talked about the fact that in a higher state of consciousness, a completely different perception of the world is possible. It should, however, be borne in mind that the state in which we usually find ourselves does not remain the same all the time. A simple observation of yourself reveals this very quickly. Remember your perception of some repeated event. Remember the feeling. You will remember that perception, feeling, wasn't always exactly the same. The perception was different each time. And this experience we all have. Sometimes the perception occurs as if in a fog, and sometimes the fog seems to dissipate and perception becomes clear, more distinct. And we notice that this event or this person suddenly worries us much more this time, today. All this is largely due to the fact that we are almost never in the same state of consciousness. It is constantly changing with certain limits corresponding to the level of our development at the moment. And when it happens that we experience special states, states of rise, a feeling of fullness of life, full of joy and happiness, then these are all just signs of higher state of consciousness compared to our usual one. And these are exactly those kind of moments which remain with us all our life. It may, of course, happen that from our usual state, there will suddenly be an exit to a sufficiently high state of consciousness. And then the person will experience something like insight, bliss, boundless joy of being. However, this state cannot be described in words. You have to experience it yourself. With the help of correct spiritual aspiration, correct understanding, and correct regular practice, you can actually achieve the status when the correct um, state of consciousness will always remain with you. So the issues we're discussing can be approached from a slightly different angle. Imagine that in your summer house, closet or attic, you find a magnifying glass that you once left there. It laid there for a long time, therefore, it became covered with a thick layer of dust. You leave the house into the yard, and suddenly you see an ant rolling along the path. So you want to get a better look at it, you bend over, but it is still hard to see. The ant is very small. And then you remember that you have in your hands the magnifying glass you found. You bring it closer to the ant and you begin to vaguely discern some details, but nevertheless, no significant improvement occurs. Then you can approach this matter scientifically. You can start bringing the glass closer to the ant and moving it away, analyzing changes in the observed picture. You can start looking at the ant from different angles, changing its position. You can develop more complex actions, algorithms, and introduce statistical data processing. In short, you can launch a series of programs of scientific research. But you can also do differently. You can take a clean cloth and wipe the glass. And then without any algorithms or statistical data processing, we will immediately see the ant clearly and very clearly. We were able to quickly and easily achieve the desired result because we did the main thing. We have improved the instrument we used for our observations. So, in order to successfully move along the path of understanding the world, we must first improve our perception. We need to change the state of our body. For example, it is necessary to improve the functioning of our brain. Although changing even one cell can change the state of the entire organism. And so there will be another cardinal question arising: how to achieve such a change and how could it be done? So there are many methods to achieve this goal. But one of the most simplest and effective ones is meditation. As a result of um, the regular meditation, a fundamental change in the functioning of brain occurs. Gradually, more and more areas of the brain begin to work in concert. This is confirmed by scientific studies conducted using electroencephalograms. So, using electroencephalograms, the effects of meditation on the pattern of brain waves in different parts of the brain was studied. Research has shown that as you progress in meditation practice, larger and larger areas of brain begin to work in harmony. And when a person fully masters this practice, his entire brain begins to work in harmony. Applying language of physics, we can say that the human brain begins to work coherently. Everyone knows what a revolution in science and technology was made by the creation of a laser. The research work in this area was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics. So the essence of these works is that for the first time it was possible to create coherent radiation and establish the principles for obtaining it. And it is the coherence of laser radiation that explains all its unique, amazing properties. Likewise, when a person, as a result of certain practice, achieves that his brain begins to work in a coherent mode, he gets into his hands a qualitatively different tool. And as in the case of laser, it is the coherent mode of operation of the brain that leads to the emergence of fundamentally new abilities and capabilities. So let's make an important note. In the experiments mentioned, the goal was to establish how the work of the brain changes during meditation, which is why it was discussed above. However, in fact, when practicing meditation, there is a change in the functioning of not only the brain, but also the entire body, every cell of it. So if we draw an analogy with a laser and take into account that a living organism is compared to a laser, then it can be understood that although the difference in the properties of laser radiation and conventional light sources is unusually great, nevertheless, the difference in the work of the body after mastering meditation and before is immeasurably greater. So, in fact, the difference is so great that a person actually moves to another level of being. For it should be borne in mind that the human body is a system capable of limitless self improvement. And it is, in fact, difficult to even imagine all the possibilities of this system. And one more note, when I say that one of the methods of changing the state of the body is meditation, then you need to keep in mind that meditation itself can be very diverse. There are many types of meditation. So the prayer, in fact, in essence, actually one of the forms of meditation. And the at the same time, of course, prayer, like any true meditation, must be spiritual. In the Christian tradition, in particular, the so called mental prayer is known. The prayer of a high spiritual level. In which the consciousness is kept in the region of the heart, and which is very effective for entering higher status of consciousness. So the rapid transitions to higher states of consciousness can be achieved through various concentrations. So when performing concentrations, the meditation can be the integral part of this process. To find out the condition of patients' internal organs, doctors use instruments and therefore send the patient, for example, for an X-ray or ultrasound diagnostics. The person with a developed inner vision acts differently. He uses his own body as a device. Transfers his body to the desired operating mode and sees all his patient's internal organs with the help of clairvoyance. With the help of clairvoyance, you can not only see the internal organs, but also find out their purpose as well as the methods of restoration. Moreover, the answer is obtained instantly with the help of clairvoyance. So here, as with the scientific approach, there is no need to conduct experiments, accumulate data, analyze them, look for patients, and so on. All these actions are usually actually done in order to get an answer. But in fact, the answer is already somewhere. It exists somehow, somewhere. You just need to take it. Indeed. Let's, for example, assume that we're interested in an organ such as the appendix, and we want to know its purpose. It is clear that nature knows its purpose. So the answer is already there. You just need to reach out and take it. And this can be done with the help of clairvoyance. So clairvoyance is a universal way of assessing information. So what could such obtaining information be compared to? In fact, something similar already exists in our modern life. This is the global internet. Using this network, you can obtain any information available on it from anywhere in the world. So it turns out that there is something like the cosmic internet exists, where there is data about everything. In this case, a person can be compared to an operator. Then clairvoyance is the way for the operator to enter the cosmic network with the request. And the speed there is so high that the answer is given instantly. This raises an interesting question, understandably. How are discoveries made? So the discoveries, and sometimes outstanding ones, are made in different areas of life. So, first of all, this can be seen as an example of science, but naturally, they also exist in other areas. For example, some change in the technological process at a factory or in society is generally one of the phenomena of our life, although the achievement of discoveries is most clearly seen perhaps in the example of science. So the question arises here, and what can be said from the point of view of under consideration about the discoveries of people who do not have clairvoyance? When a person has a brilliant idea and makes a discovery, then this thought, this answer to his search comes, of course, from the same database, from the database of the cosmic network. And most of the time, in a sense, this answer does not come to him by chance. It's not accidental in the sense that it is often obtained as a result of many years of research and hard work. But it is, you can never say when the answer will come or whether it will come at all. So we must admit that this breakthrough to the database unfortunately, is still accidental, for it is not controllable, it is not manageable. So the following comparison can be made. Let's imagine that there are two people who need water. So one of them puts his palms together, stretches his arms towards this, and stands waiting for the rain to fall so he can get some water. And the other one knows about the existence of water supply network. Moreover, he knows how to use it. So when he needs water, he simply goes to the tap and opens it. And he takes a glass of it or big big volume of it. He takes exactly how much he needs. So you need to have a standard procedure for assessing information. So the point is that there are many questions out there, but there are only few random breakthroughs to answers. And if we take, for example, the above mentioned question about the purpose of the appendix, then such breakthrough has not yet happened here, as in countless other cases. So an important note needs to be made regarding the above. For clarity, I compared the use of clairvoyance to entering the cosmic internet in which we can find the answer to any question that interests us. So this comparison reflects more the external side of phenomenon. It does not reflect its true depth. It is versatility, and therefore some clarifications need to be made. And precisely, it is possible, of course, as was said already, to obtain information, enter with the request to the general cosmic network, but you can also do differently. So the information can be taken immediately directly from the place where the sensor supplying this information is located. Moreover, and this is very important, the information already exists in the status of the person asking the question that is in the form of direct knowledge. When it is still in undeciphered form. That is even without being consciously realized by a person. It is already determines his behavior. So that this information can be understood immediately and is used by a person consciously to determine a line of behavior. A high level of consciousness developed. The high level of consciousness development is required, and this is precisely the goal that I have already spoken about. So I have already spoke about the example with the appendix. Let's consider this question in a little more detail as an example. So modern science does not yet know what the appendix is and what its purpose is. And with the help of clairvoyance, you can find out everything about the appendix. It is, in fact, a very important organ. It has several functions. One of them is following. The appendix reflects the projection of the left hemisphere of the brain into the right through the body's immune system. And one of the purposes of the appendix is to maintain the balance of these systems. When the appendix is removed, the immune system reserve recovery function is weakened. In this case, the immune system for reproduction must be reflected within the left or right hemisphere, which causes stress on the brain, leads to increased intracranial pressure, and other undesirable consequences. Thus, the appendix appears before us in a completely different light. In fact, for the first time, we are opening it. Amazing things can be said about other organs too. And what is one pituitary gland worse off? We can talk about it in the chapter 4. We will talk about the new medicine, the medicine of the future and the present.